morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are joining us from. My name is Mucha Mlingo. Welcome to another episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn series, a space where we provide the learning and you provide your own lunch. Really delighted to have you here once again for what I know will be a fantastic conversation. If you are online already, for those early birds, don't forget to say hi. Whether you're joining us from YouTube or LinkedIn, just type in the comments and say hello. Tell us where you are joining us from. If you're here for the first time, say, hey, I'm here for the first time, so we can give you a special shout out. And to our regulars, thank you for your commitment to joining us in this space and for your commitment to your learning, because I can assure you there will be some insights dropped as a result of the conversations that are going on today. Today, my role is a little different. I'm actually introducing our moderator. So we always put together our panel quite carefully. We think through the kind of audience that we have and the voices that we want to speak to those audiences. And as we reflected on our panelists who had accepted to join us for this month's conversation, we're talking about culture by design. We realized that we had, I don't know, what do you call the opposite of a panel? We had a panel of just women. And so we reached out to our biggest he for she, Wycliffe Osoro, and asked him if he would sit in my seat and moderate the panel discussion to make sure that we had some representation. And so today I am here just to introduce Wycliffe, hand over the reins to him, and he will introduce the topic and he will introduce his panel. So let me get right on to it so that I don't spend too much of his time. Wycliffe, thank you so much for always being so willing to support us at PTS. It's a delight to have you here. For those of you who don't know Wycliffe, he is an executive HR leader committed to transforming people strategy across the African continent. And as I mentioned, he is one of the individuals that we know we can always call on to support us. He's currently the HR head Africa for Swiss Sport, and he is passionate about people development. So Wycliffe, allow me to hand over the reins to you. Enjoy this Lunch and Learn episode. I'm going to say goodbye for now. Over to you.
Thank you, Mucha, for that wonderful introduction and giving me the opportunity to run this Lunch and Learn. So this is episode 57 of the Lunch and Learn, and we'll be talking about culture by design. So workplace culture is shaped by choices we make every day. As mental health challenges continue to rise, organizations have the unique opportunity to intentionally build cultures where people of all diversities feel safe, supported, and valued in today's multi-generational workplaces, fostering psychological safety, safe workplaces, and emotional intelligence is very key in encouraging open, promoting mental well-being, and strengthening suicide prevention through early awareness and meaningful connection. So in this upcoming EQ Lunch and Learn, we will explore how intentional culture and EQ support mental well-being and psychological safety. We'll also discover practical ways to integrate emerging generations, particularly Gen Z, while strengthening belonging and collaboration. Identify simple, actionable ways to create healthier and more sustainable workplaces. Before we introduce our panelists, I'd like to highlight the Mental Health Reset Workbook. This is a practical resource guide designed to support reflection, self-awareness, and intentional steps towards mental well-being. So click on the link on your screen to purchase a copy and take the first step towards your mental health reset. So let's introduce our amazing panelists for today. And the first panelist that I will introduce is Rosemary Chege. Rosemary Chege is a healthcare professional, counseling psychologist, and clinical psychology postgraduate student with over 10 years experience across healthcare management, and workplace wellness. She's passionate about mental health, well-being, and creating an inclusive and psychologically safe. Rosemary brings a people-centered perspective to conversations on workplace culture, drawing from her experience in healthcare, counseling, and wellness programming, individuals and teams to thrive. And her quote for today's Lunch and Learn is, "People thrive when they feel psychologically safe, or people thrive where they feel psychologically safe, valued, and heard." Welcome, Rosemary. To learn more about Rosemary, connect with her on LinkedIn. Our next guest, who I'm going to introduce today, is Mbali Gushu. So Mbali is an experienced development advisor and executive coach with over 10 years experience supporting social entrepreneurs, leaders, and teams across sub-Saharan Africa. She has held leadership roles at Think Impact, Nova Pioneer Academies, Ashoka, Teach for All, and Cloudline, where she's led complex operations, coached teams, and supported organizations to scale. Mbali has coached senior leaders and teachers and helping them achieve sustainable results through self-mastery. She holds a BSc in economics from Columbia University, an advanced certificate in leadership and management, and is trained in executive and management coaching by the University of Cape Town. She's passionate about equipping leaders to navigate complexity, build bold ideas, and drive meaningful change across Africa and beyond. And her quote for today's Lunch and Learn is, "At the heart of a healthy workplace is kindness and honesty, and the willingness to hold both at once, even when they pull in different directions. Kindness without honesty becomes conflict avoidance, dressed up as harmony, while honesty without kindness turns feedback into a weapon instead of a gift." So the strongest teams aren't the ones that never disagree, but the ones that trust each other enough to say the hard things gently without flinching. Hard things gently and hear them without flinching. Okay? To learn about Mbali, connect with her on LinkedIn. Welcome, Karibu Sana, Mbali. And I'll also introduce our final panelist for the day today, and this is Alice Njambi. So Alice Njambi is a psychosocial risk strategist and the founder of Conscious Works, helping organizations to identify, prevent, and manage workplace psychosocial risks that affect employees' psychological health, safety, and performance. Her approach focuses on systems, organizational responsibility, and risk intelligence, enabling organizations to move beyond reactive well-being support towards practical prevention and early intervention. So Alice is the architect of Conscious Works Psychological Health and Safety Management System, PHSMS, and creator of MHFR at Work, supported by tools including the Color Check and Brave Response Model. So her work aligns with occupational health and safety principles, including ISO 45003. She also serves as the chairperson of the Mental Wellness Association of Kenya. And her quote for today is, "Culture is lived experience of leadership." So to learn more about Alice, connect with her on LinkedIn. And a very big welcome to all of you and to our esteemed audience. So please drop a message in the chat if you would like to tell us where you are dialing from. And I can see we do have Debika Chowdhury, who's joined the call. Welcome to the call. And I'll go to the first round of questions, and this is open to all the panelists. So culture doesn't happen by accident. When we talk about creating a healthy workplace, what healthy workplace culture by design, what does intentional culture look like to you? And what is one thing that leaders underestimate about the role that they play in creating that? Maybe we could have Mbali go first.
Sure. You're starting with the hard hitters, Wycliffe. You're like, let's start hard. I mean, I think one of the major things is that culture is not something that one person sits down at their desk and really writes and designs on their own, right? Like organizations are ecosystems. There are people involved in organizations, and so it's something that you want to create all together. I serve as the director of operations at Near Delta, and we actually have a little bit of a formula for how you can think through culture, and we use the analogy of a tree, right? And so the tree has kind of like the roots, right? So that's really the beginnings of a tree, etc. And we like to think about that as kind of like the mission and the purpose of the organization. And so that's really, why does the organization actually exist in its form, right? So that's the roots that needs to be in place, and it's probably the most important thing that you can think about. And then as you advance up into the tree, there's the branch, right? And then we think about the branch as the systems and the processes. So what are the SOPs? What things are people signing when they are entering that organization? What are some of the processes and the systems that actually govern how the organization works? And then we move over into like the branches. Now, these are like the rhythms, the rituals. These are the meetings that happen, right? Do you meet annually? Are you meeting monthly? Are you meeting weekly? What do one-on-ones look like, right? And this is when the tree is starting to really flourish, right? You're starting to get your branches in place. And then the last piece that we like to think about is the leaves. So if you're going with me in this picture moment, we're creating a tree, and the leaves are essentially the behaviors. So how are people behaving as a result of all of these pieces that you've layered on and built and designed? So we have a pretty great framework that we like to think about that really helps organizations to build something that is cohesive, that helps them to really design the type of culture that they are looking for. But it is a group effort. All of those pieces need everybody within the organization to build them together. And so that would be my short answer for you, Wycliffe, on that.
Okay, great. So we can move on to Rosemary. What is your thoughts? What do we underestimate as leaders about our role in creating the right culture in the organization?
Thank you, Wycliffe. I think, let me give an illustration here. When I joined my company, my current employer, they were introducing the new people, and I was so excited because everyone was so good to me. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, everyone has been very warm. Everyone has been very kind and interesting and supportive. And the boss told me, yes, that's how we are. Don't be the one to come and ruin our team. Be a good sport. And I was so shocked because usually visitors, we are Africans, we are very good to visitors. We don't tell them, don't ruin us, we are good, don't come and, So I thought about it for a while, and I was like, why does he keep, and I noted it, he tells that to every new hires, be a good sport. If you find something good in our team, embrace it. If you find something that is, don't come and bring. If you have something good, add on, please add. If you don't have a good add-on, please leave it out. So I think now coming to your question, is that one thing that managers or maybe leaders do not realize is that to an employee, you are the culture that they experience. You are the company to them. Because as an employee, and I'm reporting directly to you, I may not have an opportunity to meet the CEO or the bigger leaders, or the whole company at large. So how I experience you as my leader is how I experience the company. So when you understand that I am how these employees is experiencing this company, then I am more cognizant of how I appear to them. So how am I responding to them? I want them, their experience. I am representing a bigger picture here. So I think we need to realize it's not just about me. I know I'm representing the company, but also how I show up is how this employee is experiencing the whole company. So that would be my short answer of that.
Thank you. How you show up is how the employee is experiencing the culture. Great. Finally, let's listen to Alice. What is your thoughts around what leaders are underestimating about creating a healthy workplace?
One thing that I have seen, that leaders often underestimate is how their everyday behaviors and their ordinary decisions, how much they actually create the culture in the workplace. Because I mean, people notice these things. They notice what leaders reward. People notice what they tolerate. They notice what they can challenge. They notice what is consistently ignored. So over time, all these things come together, and what do they become? They become this is how we do things around here. So that is one of the things that leaders underestimate, that what a leader repeatedly either models, tolerates, or rewards eventually becomes the culture.
Great. Thank you, ladies, for, that very powerful introduction to this topic. The analogy, the illustrations are really fantastic. And before we go deeper into this topic, I'd like for the audience to probably type in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or on LinkedIn, what topics you'd like us to cover on Lunch and Learn in future sessions. So let's get into a little bit of perspective from the ladies here today. And I'd like to ask Alice, we often respond to workplace mental health once someone is already struggling. So from a psychosocial risk perspective, what should organizations be paying attention to much earlier? And what does prevention look like in practice?
Super. That's such a good question. And I think what we need to recognize first is that we often get into the mental health conversation when it's too late. Like, as you've mentioned, like many organizations are by default reactive. So we come in when someone is struggling instead of being proactive. That is coming in and asking, how can we prevent harm before it happens? So I think the shift that we need to make here is we should not just ask who is struggling, but also start asking what is in the way work is happening here that is also creating or contributing to that struggle. So in other words, simply put, let's also focus on the workplace conditions that is creating harm, and not just focusing on supporting the people who are struggling, which now brings us to prevention, how prevention looks like in practice, which is very simple. Instead of looking downstream, look upstream, meaning let's look at the conditions that could be causing harm. So are there excessive workloads? Are the roles clear? Is there workplace bullying and harassment? What about the management practices? All these conditions that may cause psychological harm. Let's look at them. Let's find out why they're occurring in the first place. And then what do? We put in controls that can manage these risks. So what we are supposed to do is not focus, and support is good, but not put all our effort on support, but also focus on prevention. Because what we'll be doing then is we're not asking people to cope with unhealthy work conditions.
Great. Thanks, Alice. Really just focusing on conditions and what are the things that we can be able to improve is a great way to look at things. And Rosemary, I come to you. From your experience in counseling psychology, healthcare, and workplace wellness, what are some of the signs that a workplace may look functional on the surface, but may not feel psychologically safe to the people in it? What are these signs?
Thank you, Wycliffe. So when we speak about ecological safety in a workplace, we're looking at, four things. We're looking at, do I feel like part of this company? Am I included? It's called like inclusion safety. Do I have a feeling that I can learn in this institution, like learner safety? Am I able to learn? Do I have the can I contribute safely? Can I challenge safely? So one of the things that we can look at is, when I say inclusion, am I feeling accepted? Do I feel like I belong? Therefore, when I make my contributions, am I saying, so am I contributing as a part of this company, right? So in companies where the psychological safety is a bit of an issue, you find that employees are not able, there are a lot of silent meetings. There is a meeting has been called in, nobody is asking questions, nobody is contributing, everyone is just taking in everything that they're told. And then you can also see a lot of, nobody challenges the decisions. I believe that when we got into a workplace, we are all qualified for that position. We are here because we know how to do the job, right? And we just need, if there is a directive that needs to be given, then we can all discuss, this is a project we've been given, let's discuss on how to go about it. So everyone in the table needs to have a look, a say about it. So when you find that nobody is raising a hand or challenging or asking questions, you wonder, is it because everyone has understood, or are the directives so clear, or is it that people are not very comfortable saying what they might need to say? And then you find that people, there's a change of character when they join people joined the company and then they start changing. Supposing like when someone moves into management, say there's this one leader they do not very like because of the way they behave, and then this other person is promoted into management and they start behaving exactly the same. So it's like the workplace is changing who you are, it's changing your personality instead of you integrating yourself into the workplace. So you find there is always is almost a copy paste. Is Rosemary goes into the management, she starts picking the same. So you first start wondering, are people, do people have autonomy here? Are people able to speak out? Are people able to retain the authenticity, but at the same time live up to the company rules and maybe the regulations that have been put in place? And when we talk about learner safety, how are mistakes handled in the workplace? Because when I say learner, for me to learn what is happening, or for you to learn what is happening, you have to ask questions. So if someone asks question, then you're like, I thought we discussed this in our training. Or, Rosemary, you've been here for quite a long time. I don't expect you to be asking this question. So that says I'm not supposed to ask questions. So if I did not have clarity, then I will not ask. Probably I will do my mistakes. And when I make the mistake, I'm going to hide my mistakes again. I'm not going to say, oh, I made a mistake here, so how can we resolve it? So when you find that people are hiding their mistakes, it's really about the employee, it's more about the management system or how many mistakes are handled in the workplace. And most of the time they end up costing the company too much, because if there is a financial thing that went wrong somewhere, eventually we are going to learn about it when it's too late. So you learn that you're not able to speak out, you're not able to ask questions, therefore learning does not take place. Are you able to also contribute? Are you as an employee able to contribute to what is happening? I've joined, or maybe I'm an existing employee, there is a new project coming up, or there is just a case that we are discussing. Are my contributions taken up seriously, and am I feeling like I am able to, my contribution are meaningful? Sometimes you find some workplaces there is always this feeling that for you to feel like you're growing, you need to move into management. But we all understand that you cannot all be in management, right? Not everyone can be a manager, but you can be the best at what you do, and you do it so well, and you still grow within your role. Maybe you can grow laterally, you can grow more skills, you can you can train other people. Not everyone needs to ascend. So when you find in a workplace where people are feeling like, for me to feel like I'm growing, I have to go to the next level, you find that maybe when you're at your own position, you're feeling like maybe I need to move so that people can see that I'm a good employee. So we need to also realize that me doing what I was employed to do is actually enough, and I can grow within that position. Okay. And then maybe when it comes to challenger safety. Yep.
No, we're listening. Yes, please. As we finalize on that.
Yes, we are finalizing. When you look, am I able to challenge a decision that has come up? Am I able to say, well, that is a good strategy. How about if we try this? If you're not able to do that, you wonder, you have to stick to what has been given. You start wondering, what is happening? Is it safe for the employees to actually speak up and contribute and challenge decisions that have been there? So thank you.
Great. I think I love that there's four, when you're thinking about psychological safety, there's four different things that you're looking at. If I got that right: inclusion, contribution, challenging, and learner's safety. I think I would want to ask Mbali, you've worked extensively with young professionals, entrepreneurs, leaders, and teams across different organizational environments. What are you noticing about the younger generations, particularly Gen Z, that we always talk about, expect from the workplace culture, and where do those expectations sometimes clash with established ways of working?
Why do you leave all the toughest questions for me, Wycliffe? You see, even Alice agrees. That's a tough one. So I'll also let
because you're an expert in this, and you're gonna get it.
I'll also let my fellow sisters weigh in on this one. I have the privilege also of working with a lot of Gen Zs in the places that I serve. And one of the things that I hear all the time is this phrase of nothing for us without us. Right? And so one of the first things I did when I learned that we were going to be talking about this topic is I actually asked them. I asked, a lot of my team who are Gen Zs about what it is that they particularly are looking for in a workplace. I'm going to summarize a couple, Wycliffe. I think one is flexibility. That one is probably the one that clashes the most with Gen X, myself, or anybody else who is a little bit older, right? Because I think for us, at least how I grew up or how I entered the workplace, you had to work hard, right? The first person in, you're the last person out. There was this like rigor that needed to happen. It's like suffering. People needed to see you sweat before you could get from one place to the other. Whereas the Gen Zs, they're like, excuse me, please, just tell me, where are we going? When do you need us to get there? And let me get there on my own, right? So I think that's one of the clashes that we see a lot in organizations, right? And then people start to label it as different things, like our culture is not working, people don't have accountability, people aren't serious, etc. But what they're really bringing into the space is something that I think is great awareness about what does it mean to fully live into your career and into a workspace without you compromising your psychological safety, without you compromising your health, essentially. We've heard from Rosemary, I think Alice also mentioned this a little bit earlier, about how important it is for people to feel psychologically safe, right, in the workplace. One of the things that I reflect on, Wycliffe, is the COVID era. I think after we all recovered after the COVID era, everybody was thinking, actually, how do I just bring more of myself into my work? Is this all there is? Should I just be working and working and working and working, right? And so people started to look at culture and unpack culture. Lucky for us, because that's what we do, right? But I think it's an important thing, and it's important to actually have people of different generations within the company, because I think it really puts a spotlight on some of those pieces. I think that on top of the flexibility thing, the last thing that I will also mention is clarity of where we are going. I spoke earlier about the tree. I think for a lot of leaders, you are sometimes coming up with systems or coming up with rules or coming up with processes that are informed by your experience of when you used to work. right? But the important thing for you to be thinking about is, what is the end goal? What do you actually want to happen, right? Are you a factory? So do you need to make 1 million cartons of milk? Are you a consulting company? So you need to make X amount of, billable hours. But what is the actual outcome? And then make that extremely clear for every single person within your organization. If you all work backwards from there, then you should be able to build a culture that is streamlined, that takes you towards your goals. Anytime you're like, but me, this used to happen when I was working, but this used to happen when I was working, you'll be in a conflict situation. So how can you get clarity about what is the North Star? Where are we going? And then how do you bring people into that, North Star? How do you share that vision with everybody, share what success looks like with everybody, so that everybody is moving into that direction with the flexibility that they need, with the psychological safety that is required, etc. I think psychological safety really hampers when people start to fill in the gaps for themselves. When you don't tell them the information and they start to fill in the gaps. Like how my sister Rosemary was saying, she was like, if people see you've made a mistake and then something happens, they fill in the gap. Oh, that person must have been, punished, etc., etc. So how do you make sure that you're bringing in that clarity for the goals, but also clarity about how your systems and the company really works? I think that is one potential way to work well with Gen Zs, and also what they've told me from my work, at least, about what they want.
Great.
Can I jump onto
that?
Thank you
very much, Mbali. And, yes, you can.
I'd like to add something from what I've noticed, that the Gen Zs are not like Mbali, like you've said, they're not like us. They're questioning what we have normalized for so long. Like we've learned to normalize burnout. And we glorify burnout. Someone is burning out and we're saying they're working so hard. We've glorified excessive workload as a sign of dedication, being always on as a sign of how committed you are to work. And what Gen Z have done is they've actually asked, they're asking why are we supposed to be doing these things? I know I have a friend who the other day she was telling me she has 2 Gen Zs working for her. And she just woke up and she got a job on a Saturday, and she woke up and she told them, "But the guys, you're coming to work tomorrow." And they didn't show up. And she was so shocked. She has learned, she was so shocked because during our time, we used to show up, like we used to fear. These guys fear no one, and they're actually right. As in, you just don't wake up, we have plans, and all of a sudden you expect us to show up. The other thing, I have a Gen Z in the house, and she hates being micromanaged. Like, just tell her what you want her to do, then you leave it to her. So what I love about this particular generation is all these things that we have normalized, they're actually questioning, which is so amazing, because that's why we're even having these mental health conversations evolving and growing. I'm very happy about that.
Thank you, Alice, I think, for that chiming in and what you've experienced also around the Gen Zs. I just want to recognize the people who have continued to join. We have Tobek, Cape Town, Tendai. We also Nicholas, who's joining us from the first time from Platinum Credit, and we also have Muchuku Magondo, who's also joined the call. So as we continue unpacking this topic, please drop in the chat the topics that you'd like us to cover in future sessions. So I'd just like to move to another session of questions. And we hear a lot about psychological safety, but psychological safety doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. And I think we've talked about that. How do we create cultures where people speak openly, challenge ideas, and acknowledge when they're struggling, while still maintaining accountability and performance? So this is an open question, and I think the ladies, feel free to go in the sequence that you would love.
I can go first.
I want to go fast because they say I always save the hard things, but or Rosemary.
Yeah, before you ask me a hard question, let me go first, Wycliffe.
This is the easier one.
I think 2 things. for this question, Wycliffe. One is there needs to be an intentionality of creating the space for vulnerability. Like vulnerability doesn't happen by accident, right? You need to actually intentionally create those spaces. Let me give you an example. One of the things that we do in our company is that before we start any meeting, we actually start by checking in. You can't start a meeting until everybody has checked in and said how they are doing. And what does that help us with? We find out if somebody has lost a family member, over the weekend. We find out if somebody is struggling with something, etc. And then we all adjust ourselves to be able to support that person as best as possible in the situation that they're in. So you need to create the spaces, and that's really important. Like, it's not just business as usual only, but where are some of the spaces we're going to intentionally build for there to be vulnerability within teams, and then also for teams to feel that comfort and safety to say, this is what I'm struggling with, this is something that I can have help with. The second thing is modeling. So you can't create the space and then as a leader fold your arms and be like, yeah, you guys be vulnerable. Right? You actually need to model it also. So on days when I'm like, okay, guys, actually, I feel really nervous about this presentation, it's sharing some of the things. And I think that as we were growing up, leaders used to be up there, right? They never get nervous. They just arrive, and they never do this, they never do that. And there would be all these preconceptions about what leaders are meant to be like. But I think leading with vulnerability and showing your vulnerability gives people comfort to be able to step into that space with you. And then being really authentic about it, right? I think one of the things that some of our clients always ask us is like, if we create the space, how will we control it? How will we control the space if we create it, right? And so that's where you put in systems and processes. So when something actually touches healthcare, are you calling a Rosemary to come and support the team? If there is issues around psychological safety, are we calling Alice to come in and actually, are we calling the right kinds of professionals into the spaces to be able to support and help, employees? And then also for some of the things, then you contain them, right? So you say, this is an hour session, this is what we do during this hour session. You contextualize it. But I think that there's usually quite a bit of fear, right? When people are like, oh, do I want to open that can of worms? But I think that if you put together the systems and you also show vulnerability yourself as a leader, it makes it a lot easier for your staff to be able to hop in.
Great, thanks, Mbali. Any other view? Alice, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. I think what we need to first correct is the misconception that psychological safety means everyone has to be comfortable all the time.
Yes.
That psychological safety means that the organization has to lower its standards, that you cannot ask questions, you cannot challenge performance, and you'll be working, on eggshells in the office. That's what we need to correct. Psychological, you can have standards, you can challenge performance, you can have difficult conversations. The difference here is now, how do you go about doing that? Yeah. So can my manager give me feedback without humiliating me? Can I disagree with someone without fearing punishment? Can I admit mistakes without looking for somewhere to hide? In fact, I'd actually think that healthy accountability and psychological safety go hand in hand, yeah? Because we need to create spaces where the organization is comfortable to say the truth to the employees. And on the other hand, also, the employees can be able to say the truth to the employer, especially when things are not going right, yeah? Because when people are not able to say the truth, then what happens is leadership is usually making decisions with incomplete information.
And maybe you could just add on that.
Yes,
Yeah, so I
jump
think
right in.
Yes. When we talk psychological safety, again, like I agree a lot with what Alice has said. it doesn't mean that we are overlooking accountability. It doesn't mean psychological comfort. Like, no, we are comfortable, we cannot be accountable. And I think when employees are feeling safety and there is psychological safety, and I'm able to speak up and I am struggling, I can say I'm struggling with this. And now maybe my manager will step up and say, what is happening, Rosemary? How can we support? And when you're able to speak up on time or just raise an alarm that you're not able to meet your, maybe I'm struggling and I'm not able to meet my deadlines as expected, I'm not able to perform as expected, then they will have enough time to maybe place someone else to do it. So we will save time and we'll be able to communicate on time. So it's not about leaving out the accountability part of it. In fact, I think it makes accountability stronger. If I say today I'm not able to function right now, however, if you allow me for like 2 hours, I'll be able to do that within an hour. But if someone is saying, I remember, I love giving illustrations because that's probably how I see life. There was one time I got a panic attack at work, and it's I'm in psychology. I hadn't even started doing psychology. I did not understand what was going on, and I was so sure I was getting a heart attack. It was a cardiac arrest because my heart was going off, and I had a report to finish in about 2 hours. So my hands were shaky, everything, I could not concentrate. I drank so many glasses of cold water because it seemed to help, and yet somehow I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to tell anyone that I was waiting for that moment when I would fall, and then now everyone will see, oh, this is an emergency, because I looked fine physically, but inside there was total chaos. So it spanned over 2 hours. And then my colleague asked, how far are you with this report? I'd like to take some of the information from your report. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I think I'm not okay. Then she asked, have you tried walking out and coming back? I'm like, yeah, actually, that's a good idea. So I went to washroom, and you come back and you feel like, oh, maybe I just needed to breathe and all that. So in an organization where these conversations are normalized and speaking up about struggling is normalized, you'll be able to just walk and say, I think I'm not feeling so well. Can I have a few minutes? And then you'll be like, that's all right. However, that we will still need that report at the end of the day. I'll be able to take care of myself and at the same time come and deliver as expected. So I think we just need to create an environment where people can speak up on time, so that what needs to be done we don't end up having delayed reports, like the whole day is ruined just because I did not feel comfortable enough to say that I'm struggling. So yes.
I love that from Rosemary. Wycliffe, before you come in, I want to...
Yes, Mbali. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, one, Rosemary just modeled,
Yes.
The idea of vulnerability by sharing her story, which I think is like amazing, for us to be able to hear. But another thing that it sparked for me is how important it is to create those intentional spaces as a norm, so that when people are actually experiencing stressful moments, or when there is like toughness within an organization, those things actually already exist. And I want to be like so practical about it, because I'm always advising my CEOs and my leaders that 80% of their time should actually be spent on taking care of the people. Right. It should actually be spent on doing meetings, checking in on folks. It should be spent on checking in on the people that are actually running your business, more than you running around and doing all those separate things. Right. And so how do you normalize that and make that into a weekly recurrence, like 15 minutes with everybody once a week, just to check in and put in those systems, so that by the time that it's heightened, or by the time it's a stress moment, people know that system already exists. I just wanted to add that, like, one practical tool as well.
Yes, thank you, Mbali. I think very great, contributions on how to create psychological safety within organizations. And there's a friend of mine who jokes and all this is organizations should not be like the kumbaya moment, it's just calm and all that, but without asking people about, delivering on what it is that they're delivering. And I think we've been challenged that the younger generations do not want to be asked for accountability, but they want this very, accepting environment. So I think it's just balancing between the two, and I think it's also good to share that and the vulnerability and the checking in. I like the contribution about how you check in meetings, and I always tend to start my team meetings with just having random conversation about anything that's happening, either around happening in the country, happening on social media, and we get chit-chatting, and that really gets people in the mood to really just open up and speak freely within the meeting. So I think that's something that we can also use practically. So I see the audience. I see Susan, who's also joined us, and please feel free as the audience to drop any questions that you may have and any comments, and we'll be able to share them with our panelists. I think I've seen quite a bit of comments coming through from Debica saying, absolutely, the environment I've grown up in, this was about the Gen Zs, is so fast-paced and information heavy. So Gen Z are bound to get that to the workplace. They're far more informed about boundaries and psychological safety than the elder generations. So the needs of all generations are the same, but the way each behave is different. Okay, great. So we'll move to, looking at this from a different perspective. And Alice, I'll go to you first. If an organization wants to move beyond well-being initiatives and start addressing the way work itself may be affecting psychological health, what 3 areas would you encourage the leaders to examine first?
All right, so I would look at these in 3 lenses, and this is actually what we teach in our psychosocial risk visibility workshops. And guys, you get this for free, courtesy of EQ Lunch and Learn. So the first lens is how is work designed? So, so how is work designed? So the question we are asking here is, what are we asking our people to carry? Or what we call the blueprint. So we are looking at the workload, the role clarity, we are looking at job certainty, job control, organizational change management, and stuff like that. That is, what are we asking our people to carry? Then the second lens is, how is work being managed? Or what we call the practice. So the question we are asking here is, what is our management actually making people experience every single day when they come to work? So here we are looking at things like team dynamics. Rosemary talked about inclusion. We're looking at psychological safety, conflict management, workplace bullying and harassment, communication, and all those things, yeah? Then the third lens is, how is work being experienced, or what we call the pulse. Not what you actually intend for your people to experience, but what they are actually experiencing, yeah? And you can get these through surveys, through turnover, grievances, employee complaints, and through what they are actually telling you. When you look at those 3 areas, yeah, how work is being designed, how work is managed, and how work is experienced, then you're able to see psychological risk from a bigger perspective than just looking at it from a well-being space.
Okay, great. So those are the 3 things that you're encouraging leaders. If I got it right, how you design the workplace, how you design the
you manage the work
experience around team dynamics, and also manage the work, and finally how the employees experience it. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Alice, for that contribution. So Rosemary, managers are often the first people to notice that someone is withdrawing and overwhelmed, or simply not themselves. At that moment, to respond with empathy and care without trying to become the employee's therapist.
Interesting question,
Rosemary?
Wycliffe. So, yes,
Yeah.
can you hear me? Okay, thank you. So allow me, before if I answer that question or give my insight,
Yes.
let me put another, maybe an illustration again. When we talk about, say, vulnerability and being who you are, I work in a medical insurance. So I get to see the other side of people who are working in companies and their medical issues and all that. So one thing that managers need to realize, or people who are in the management need to realize, is that these are real people. If I have a diagnosis, or someone has a diagnosis, says person X has a diagnosis of depression, when you go to work and find them at work, they don't look depressed. They look like a normal employee who is working. So sometimes when someone shows up, like I said, maybe I showed up and I was feeling like I was having a panic attack, you realize that these things don't happen to other people. They happen to the people that we are working with here. We're not talking about other people. We are talking about these people. And therefore, we don't know what is happening on the background. So it's good to always show up. And so now, to your question now, if I notice that someone is withdrawing, someone is becoming a bit, well, they're not showing up as they should, their productivity has gone down, your role as a manager is to, first you need to observe and see this is happening. And then now you listen. Like I notice that you're not showing up as usual. I notice that your productivity has gone down. What is happening? Is there a way is there something happening? Then they'll probably share what is happening. And then you're like, how can we support you to do your work better? Always remember your position is as a manager. The context here is work. So because we are at work, we will discuss it regarding the productivity of work. So do you need some more time? Allow us some time so that we plan and who to give the work as we give you a break. So don't get into fixing the issue. Listen and support. Listen and show care. Oh, I see that you're struggling with that. Maybe do you need some time off? When was the last time you took your leave? How can we be of support? How can we enable you to deliver better? So at this point, we are trying to just, I'm showing you I care and I'm supporting you so that you can deliver your role. And your core role here is to just make sure there is continuity of work because you're the manager, you're managing work. And also you're showing the person who delivers that I care about you and I hear that you're not able to deliver right now. So maybe thank you for letting me know. Maybe we can do this. We can allow you some time to maybe fix your things, just communication so that you can be able to rearrange, so that you don't get into, so maybe it's a problem from home, it's a marital issue, and you're like, hey, now when they come back, you start asking, what did your husband do this time now? So you become so invested in the story, it stops being functional now. You're becoming a friend, a therapist, it becomes so much. So stick to the context and stick to the content. Is that I'm not able to perform, so this is how I support you. And meanwhile, I can show you, I can guide you towards support. We have an EAP program. We have psychologists there. All these are the people who you can talk to. We have maybe a panel of therapists. You can see Rosemary, you can see, then just push them toward the right direction, but don't get involved. Don't get too entangled into carrying the burden, because again, now it becomes, you will be dealing with season 2, episode 15 of what happened, so that we keep work objective. Now you also respond within your role. Because the moment you start advising people, it becomes, you know what, you told me, I did that, it don't work. So and also even therapists are not allowed to do that. We just listen and allow you to just see your mind and make your own decisions. So yes, don't get involved. Just support someone and show them what to do about it.
Yeah, I get what I'm getting from really, Rosemary, is acknowledging that you've actually seen that and really nudging them in the right direction and avoiding getting involved in that. And I do see that a lot as HR practitioners. We get to know a lot about what's happening in the organization, especially even with people's lives. And I'm always the proponent of, can you push to have these conversations with professionals? Because I've had some instances where line managers say, no, we're handling this. We already know, yes, they have a problem, but we're handling this. But I always say, no, you have you have the right people who can be able to do this. They're professionals who can be able to do this. So it's pushing them into the right direction. In as much as you've acknowledged what is happening, get them the right support. So Mbali, when different generations have very different expectations around communication, feedback, flexibility, or leadership, what can leaders do to turn these differences into better collaboration rather than frustration?
There you go again, Wycliffe.
With a difficult no, you have all the capability.
But I think it goes back to a lot of what we have been sharing. And I think what I'm loving about hearing all these different perspectives on the panel today is just how practical we are getting, right? And so I want to actually answer this as practically as possible. I think that when people are, there are usually like these different phases of a team, right? Like norming, storming, etc. I'm sure we're all familiar with the different pieces of it. But I think one of the important things is to create spaces where you are actually being very clear about what communication looks like and also what successful communication looks like. So let me give you an example. One of the things that we have within our company is that we have an end-to-end mapping of any project that comes our way. And that end-to-end mapping is extremely clear. It says, here is the template that you send to this person. Here is how long you should be. Like in 24 hours, this is when you do this. In 48 hours, this is when you do that. And that is actually a co-created document. So it wasn't Mbali who went and sat in her corner with Claude, my new best friend, Claude, and we made, all of this, but it's a co-created thing, right? So you do a first draft, you share it with a few people within the organization, you test it out, you see whether this works or it doesn't work. They give you some feedback, you reiterate on it. You take it into a larger group, a few team spaces. You ask them, hey guys, how does this work in terms of our norms and our communication? Is this a yes or a no? What should we tweak? What am I not thinking about? And then lastly, you share it with the larger organization, and you still leave the space for people to be able to tweak and adjust that to be something that's going to work for everybody. And ultimately, at the end of these, like, communication is just a tool, right? It's a tool. It's a way for you to get somewhere. And I think when everybody is really aligned about where are we going, it becomes a lot easier to do the negotiations of how do we get there, right? And communication is the how do we get there. So I think it's really important to just practically have those conversations and do that iterative process of bringing in different stakeholders, getting their opinions, and really building something that is going to work in the long run. And I think it's a really easy way for you to be able to build collective understanding around communication across different generations. The last thing that I will add is there is really a power in internal advisory within organizations. So whether that be like forming small groups of people who are in charge of communication, forming a small group of people that are in charge of business development, a small group of people that is in charge of culture, even culture champions. That's something that a lot of organizations love, and making sure you're picking from different and diverse people to make those small groups or those small advisory groups. Those are awesome, because whenever you are in a bind or you can't figure something out very quickly, you can take it to that group, and there is diversification within that group to give you a first glance, right, of some of the things that you are working on as a leader. And so I would say that that's another practical tool that folks can be using within their organizations.
Great. Thank you, Mbali, for that feedback on how to put this into practical, in a practical sense within the organizations that we're working in. I'd want to just recognize also that we do have Odhiambo with, a great comment there. Free lunch is served, but the content is invaluable. I also want to recognize my former classmate, Petronila, who's also on the Lunch and Learn today. Very relevant and timely discussion. The people, the process, profit framework does work well if people have psychological safety. They will do their work very well, and processes will flow in such a way that the customer is happy and translates to the organization having profits, bringing in that connection between psychological safety and actually organizations making money, which is what majority of the organizations are in place to do. So I'd want to speak about, so we've had about the practical ways of creating healthier and more supportive workplaces. But meaningful change also begins with personal reflection. And the Mental Health Reset Workbook provides practical prompts and exercises to help you pause, reflect, and turn some of today's insights into intentional feedback. And I'd like to just ask those who are on the Lunch and Learn call today to just give us feedback on a scale of 1 to 5. How valuable is the content that you are receiving today to you? And you will also be able to see the link to getting the Mental Health Reset Workbook. So I'm looking at the questions from the audience, and we do have one question that is here from JNX. And what can you do when speaking up is used against you? So this is an open question to the panelists. What can you do when speaking up is used against you? Who would like to go first?
I can. That's such a good question. That's such a good question because it's actually talking about what we've been talking about all along. Yeah, like that workplace has very low psychological safety, which means if I cannot be able to speak up, then I'll choose silence. So silence becomes a strategy. Yeah. So in workplaces, when people are silent, it does not mean that we don't have any risks and everything is working well. So what do you do when you cannot be able to speak up? And or maybe when you speak up and it's used against you, I always recommend document, like as if you're gonna produce this in a court of law tomorrow. I have a friend who was in such a situation. She spoke up and her manager wasn't very happy about it. She just wrote an email regarding this is how I feel this should be handled. Then I think 3 or 4 months later, there were auditors in the workplace. They came and there was so much that had gone wrong. And lo and behold, her manager actually threw her under the bus. The only thing that actually saved her was that documentation. So if you're in a space where you speak up and maybe you're being punished or it's being disregarded, don't feel disheartened. Document, like you're gonna produce it because it actually helps.
Okay. Any other view on that, Rosemary, Mbali?
Yeah, maybe I can add.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can add from a coaching perspective. I think that's also part of what I experience, particularly coaching people who are in situations like that, is there's almost like various layers of escalation, right? So there is like layer number 1, which I love, and I think Alice has just like, hit the nail on the head there of like, document and try to see if there's something that you can do about it within that environment. But I think one of the things that you also see in coaching is that a lot of people are looking for a job, but they are not necessarily vetting a workplace for themselves and their growth and their psychological safety. Right? It is extremely difficult for one person to come into a workplace and change its psychological, and change the environment and change the culture. It's possible, but it is extremely difficult. And so there is an onus on each and every individual when they are vetting and looking for somewhere where they want to work, about asking the right questions and also seeing some of these signs, right? How many people have you spoken to in the interview process? Can I speak to someone who is at the bottom level? Can I speak to an intern, please? Just to understand a little bit more about what this culture might look like. And I think it's really important for people to also think through this as they are making those commitments to get into certain workplaces, so that you can make sure that you are entering somewhere where at least you've done a little bit of research about what the culture looks like and potentially how you can manage yourself against that, right? Is this something that you would be able to take? Is this something where actually, no, this is not going to work out for me, it's triggering for X and X reason? And so I just wanted to add that, because I think in coaching practice, we sometimes get there with the person, but it's almost too late. They're already in the role, they're already in the organization, and now they have to start to think about pivoting or getting out or finding an alternative place to work. And so I think it's important to do some of that pre-vetting as well, as much as you can.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thanks, Mbali.
can I give something there? Thank you,
Yes,
Mbali.
okay.
As Mbali was speaking, I got an aha moment somewhere there. So when you speak up and it's being used against you, and you want to understand the context, what is it that was being, so communication, this I want to look at it in the perspective of communication, where communication is usually two-way. There is content and then the context. The content is, what did I speak out about, right? That's maybe the water is dirty, or getting enough tea in the office, right? But the context is, how is it said, who said it, where was it said, who was available when it was said. Because sometimes you find it's not really about the question. It's probably because the manager was there, and the bigger manager was there, and they are gonna ask the person who was asked. So sometimes it's good to understand who is feeling exposed by my question, who is seeming like they're not working by me asking this question. Because if I say like I'm being honest, well, honestly, the water nowadays is not so good, then the person who is in charge is like, later you're being told like, oh, you should watch how you communicate. It becomes the way you communicate, some of these things. But the real issue is how it was said, who was there, who was available. So what you can do is to learn and read the room, and read what happens when certain questions. Sometimes it's not even a psychological safety issue. Sometimes it's about the more political. It's more political than a safety issue, because maybe someone has not done what they were supposed to do, and someone realized, especially for people who you have not learned to speak the corporate language, you probably just speak plainly and say the water is dirty, or instead of saying that we have a few needs that we need to address in the maybe hygiene department, or hydration or something, but you say like, so you realize the water is dirty, and now it becomes off so badly. But it's because there is someone who is feeling exposed. Someone else is realizing that they have not done what they were supposed to do. So reading the room and understanding the context will help you also to be able to ask the right questions at the right time. And also now, if it's a psychological issue, so again, it also speaks to psychological safety, because if someone is feeling exposed, that means if someone asks a question and it is my department, now am I not working? So it speaks more about the management than the person who is asking a question. If it becomes a problem, then there is a problem that hasn't been addressed higher up. It's really about you, who is asking the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think a lot of great insights there. I've had something about the corporate language, and learning how to speak the corporate language, and how you present. you present issues there so that you can try and avoid things being used against you. I do recognize that we have other people who've joined us, and just want to shout out to Roland, Florence, and Polycarp, who have also joined the call, and Alice. Alice notes that culture is lived experience of leadership. That's what we had actually said earlier on. And what is one subtle thing leaders do that speaks louder than company policies? Maybe if you can be thinking about that. What is one subtle thing that leaders do that speaks louder than company policies? Anyone who'd like to talk about that in their experience? One subtle thing.
I can go.
Oh, go ahead, Alice.
So one thing that they do, yeah, like what has come to mind is when a leader says, "We care about your well-being." We care about you, we care about your well-being. But the same leader is sending emails at midnight and expecting you to respond. So that is one thing that, as in what we say and what we do, are actually not aligned. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
With Mbali, you wanted to also share as
Mine is very similar to Alice's. Reactions, leader reactions, right? If someone comes with an idea and you go, "Oh, amazing, great," and somebody else comes with an idea and you're barely listening, or you start picking up your phone and you start engaging with your phone, there are tiny little telltale signs that give people an indication of what do you really mean as a leader. And so it's extremely important to have full awareness about how you come into a space. Like, rather, don't even go into a space if you feel like you're distracted, because you really want to be intentional about coming into the space and having the appropriate but then also equal types of reactions. I think that's one that I've observed a lot of, and they're like, somebody hates me or something, like, etc. You start to make up stories in your head. But I think just the intentionality of showing up as a leader is really important.
I think it's more about, and you've said, it's what do people say, and then how do they do it? Actions. A lot of people say this and then do the rest, and I think that's one of the ways that you'd look at that. And so I want to just go to maybe a last round of questions to the team here, but before we get on to giving the parting shot. And let me go with Rosemary. So what is once, I think this really addresses what we just, what is one small behavior leaders can practice consistently that helps people ecologically safer, seen as, if you'd want to add to what other things?
Okay. I think all leaders, the moment you step into leadership, you're called to, what brought you here cannot keep you there, cannot sustain you there. It's the hard work that got you there, that cannot just sustain you there. And I highly recommend that you work on your self-awareness. You see, who am I? Because now after, hard work can get you there, but your people skills really are not very good. Maybe you don't like being challenged. Maybe you don't like people asking questions when you're not ready. So once you are self-aware, you become self-aware, you learn your triggers, you learn your emotions and everything. Work on yourself, work on your self-awareness, know yourself so well that I remember one time we were doing appraisals, and I walked to my boss a few years back, and she told me, "Rosemary, if I appraise you right now, I'm going to I don't know how I'm going to score you. Please, let's talk tomorrow when I am fresh and I'm less tired." You see, that is self-awareness. You are aware that there are situations or your psychological states that might allow you not to show up as authentically or as you are supposed to be, right? So yeah, self-awareness always.
Yeah. Okay, great. Mbali, maybe if I could just ask, what is one assumption about Gen Zs that you think leaders need to let go of if they were to build stronger multi-generational teams? One assumption about Gen Zs.
That they are lazy. that we need to let go of. That we need to let go of. I don't know how many times I've heard this. I'm like, they just don't work as hard as us. They are lazy. So I think that's definitely one that I think they need to let go of. But also, I think they need to let go of the idea that you can't understand certain people. I love what Alice had said much earlier in the conversation about people are just coming at things from different perspectives, right? And so you shouldn't just like wrap up the book and be like, oh, I'm done. I can't deal with Gen Zs. I'm gonna have to find somebody else. But you should also have that exploration. You should also be curious to find out more, and just leave that space for curiosity, so that you can really be able to bridge across various generations within a company. But they're not lazy. That's my parting information.
Great. And let me just go, if you were to say one workplace practice that organizations think supports well-being, because I like this. A lot of organizations always talk about we need to do something around well-being, but it doesn't. It may actually just be addressing the symptom rather than the underlying risk.
Absolutely. One thing I would say is actually those well-being activities themselves, yeah? Especially when we take
The
them
actual
as the
activity.
entire mental health strategy. So thinking of an EAP, yeah? When we take an EAP as the entire strategy. So what happens is something an EAP cannot work on excessive workload. An EAP cannot fix bullying. So when we actually have just one program and then take it as the entire strategy, what is usually happening is, oh, I thought I have frozen. So when we take the well-being activities and then what we are asking, we are not fixing the unhealthy conditions at work. What we are doing is actually pushing the responsibility to our employees. That is one thing that we need to change.
Okay. So the well-being activities are great, but I think it's a context in which they're done, and that will be able to address. But we don't look and see something has shown up, then let's do this. Really
Yes.
just going
So,
and
yes.
understanding why this is happening. Yes, Alice?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the well-being activities are great. EAP is great, but it's only a support pathway. Yeah. So let's also focus on prevention. Otherwise, what we are doing, we're just pushing the responsibility of coping with broken systems to the employees, yet the organization actually has control of those risks.
Okay, great. So I'm loving that we've received feedback from the group online, and really we've asked that you give us on a scale of 1 to 5 how valuable the content has been to you. 5 being extremely valuable and 1 very little or no value. I've seen a number of 5s. Thank you for the team for sharing that. Also recognize Nancy, who's been on the call, Joseph, Polycarp, also for your rating there. We really appreciate the feedback. So as we are getting to the end of wrapping up, if every leader listening could just do one intentional change in their workplace, what in their workplace culture tomorrow, what would you encourage them to do? Maybe just quickly saying what is that one thing that you'd want to encourage leaders. Each of you, we can go around the panelists, starting with Rosemary, Mbali, and then Alice. What is that one thing that you encourage them to do?
Well, I would encourage every leader to realize that you are called for more than the role, your job description, and you being self-aware. I think I said that before. I think that was my parting shot. But you being self-aware is very important, and understanding the context. Who am I dealing with? Who are my reportees? The same way I handle a millennial is not the same way I'll handle a Gen Z. So that we in the school system, we have it's called the Montessori system that says If a child does not understand the way we teach in a way that a child understands. So the same way, we don't have to always allow people to speak a language that you understand. So even you can listen to what they are saying and understand. You know, it doesn't always have to be, feedback can also work downwards or upwards. So if you do not understand in the way they are not communicating in a way that you understand, you can also listen or ask or clarify in a manner that you get what they are saying, so that it doesn't become, oh, they're so disrespectful, maybe they're not clear. It's not a communication issue, it's a content issue. So that's what
Okay, the context, not just the communication. Thank you. Mbali, your parting shot. What do you encourage the leaders to change? Just one intentional change.
One intentional change. I would say listen and listen deeply, right? The answers are all around you, and people have amazing ideas all around you. Gone are the days when leaders had to have all the answers by themselves. So I would say listen and listen deeply. That would be my parting shot for leaders.
Great. Alice, what is your parting shot?
Super. I'll reiterate what Mbali has said and then listen. Don't start defending the organization. Don't start telling the person to become more resilient. Listen and then act. Because when we do that, then culture starts changing. When people see, so when we speak up, something is happening. So ask, listen, then act.
Okay, great. I know a lot has been said about the esteemed three ladies who have been my guests in today's session. And I think for me, really, my key takeaways are I've looked at, how important it is for us to be vulnerable as leaders in creating a psychologically safe space within the organization, and how even modeling that is something that's extremely important. About the intentionality, the second takeaway for me is the intentionality in creating the workplaces that we have in the organizations, and that really came out with the very great illustration that Mbali did give out at the beginning in terms of the tree, and how to really intentionally create the right organization culture, and finally, it's just really and this is all about culture. It's all about us as the leaders. It is what we model, it is what we say, it is what we. So thank you, ladies, for your participation in today's Lunch and Learn. It is really an amazing opportunity to have listened to each and every one of you, and I hope that in the feedback that we will continue to get, even as the session goes live, goes on our YouTube channel and also on LinkedIn, we'll be able to continue to receive the feedback, and I think that will be a great one. And even for the audience, I would like to just ask you, what is your biggest takeaway from today's session? If you can be able to just drop that in the comment section, and that will really be a grateful one. And before we close, we invite you to take the conversation beyond today's session on the Mental Health Reset Workbook, which is a practical tool to help you continue to reflect on your mental well-being and intentional steps going forward. Click on the link that will be on your screen to be able to purchase your copy. I'm very happy. I think because of my background, you'll not be able to see it, but it is right there with me, the Mental Health Reset Workbook that you can be able to really practically use to help you. So as we close this conversation today, it reminds us that workplace culture is not simply what an organization says. It's what people experience in leadership, relationships, communication, and the way work is designed. Through the lens of emotional intelligence, we've been able to explore how psychological safety, inclusion, and early awareness can strengthen the mental well-being while creating space for people to feel safe, valued, and heard. At the same time, we've seen that suitable culture requires intentional action. By embracing different generations, encouraging honest conversations, addressing psychosocial risks early, and leading both with empathy and accountability. Organizations can create workplaces where people feel they belong and are able to thrive. So ultimately, culture is designed through the choices we make every day, and each one of us has a role to play in shaping it. So thank you all for joining episode 57 of EQ Lunch and Learn, Culture by Design. We sincerely appreciate your presence, engagement, and commitment to creating healthy and more sustainable workplaces. I will release the ladies for now. I know Mucha was to come back, and thank you, ladies, for joining the session. There's also on your screen, you can see a QR code where you can scan and be able to get the mental health reset workbook. Mucha.
What a fabulous conversation, ladies. You were awesome. Thank you so much for your insights. Wycliffe, I could feel almost threatened that you are coming for my job. You did such a good job of moderating. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you at PTS. And we love the fact that whenever we reach out to you, you're always available. Wycliffe, you really are a he for she, and we love that about you. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for... Oh man, it's always amazing to me how it doesn't matter how we pull in the the panelists, where we pull them in from. Somehow they just gel so well and drop amazing insights. One of the participants said that indeed lunch has been served, and you really have lunch for the mind. So thank you very much, everyone. Mbali, Rosemary, Alice, we really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing insights. Don't forget, you can connect with each one of them on LinkedIn. If you liked what they said, connect with them, follow them, learn more from them, and you can always inbox them and ask more questions on what they have shared with us today. We love bringing amazing resources to you. Ladies, I'll say goodbye for now. And Wycliffe, thank you so much for your moderation. That was absolutely fantastic. Wow, what an amazing conversation that has been. Mine is just to say thank you so much again for joining us and for engaging with us. You've heard Wycliffe mention repeatedly, check out our mental health reset workbook. It's a practical tool to help you continue reflecting on your mental well-being and take intentional steps forward. There is a link in the comments. There's a QR code on the screen. Have a look. It is a great resource that's built around 12 mental health challenges that you do on a monthly basis. And so the idea here is to continue supporting you. As I close, this conversation reminds us that workplace culture is not just what the organization says. It is, what people experience every day. And I think what came through really powerfully from the panelists was this idea is that leaders are the ones that ultimately set the tone. So for all the leaders who are here, my 3 takeaways: the guest said amazing things. Number 1, psychological safety is invisible from the outside. A team can look functional and still not feel safe to the people inside it, which means as leaders, we need to actively check for that gap and not just assume it isn't there. Number 2, prevention starts upstream of well-being programs. Real change means looking at how the work itself is designed, the workload, the role clarity, the communication, not just adding initiatives at the top of a system that is actually creating the risk. And lastly, building for Gen Z isn't about accommodating a generation. It's about examining our own assumptions. The friction that we call generational is often just an unexamined norm meeting a fresh set of eyes. Don't forget to share with us what your biggest takeaway has been, even as I continue to appreciate Mbali, Alice, and Rosemary, and our moderator, Wycliffe. It really has been a great conversation. One more thing as we go, if today's conversation has you thinking about what this could look like beyond one session in your organization, that's exactly the work we do through Culture of Care, our flagship program designed to embed wellness into organizational strategy, not just as an initiative sitting at the side, but as part of how leadership and culture actually operate. We train and equip well-being champions inside organizations to drive resilience, mental health, and inclusive well-being across their teams using experiential training, practical tools like the mental health reset workbook, the Champions Edition, and an ongoing community that keeps the work alive long after the training ends. It's about moving wellness from the margins to the core. So keep an eye on our socials for updates on culture of care. Shoot us an email, info@pts.co.ke, if you have any questions on the same. And we'd love to tell you more about how your organization can be part of it. Thank you for joining episode 57 of the EQ Lunch and Learn, Culture by Design, Shaping Sustainable Workplaces. We sincerely appreciate your presence, your engagement, and commitment to creating healthier and more sustainable workplaces. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate what you have gained from this session today, where 5 is exceptional and 1 was, well, that was a waste of my lunch? Drop that in the comments. If you're watching this later, please still drop it in the comments. And also tell us, what would you like to see more of? We're beginning to develop the calendar for 2027. What would you like to see more of next year as far as the topics we have? Thank you so much for being with us. As always, until next time, diarize the last Wednesday of every month. See you then. We have definitely provided the